Welcome to Boxing Scene Today. I'm Ricardo Celis here in the studio with the Magic Man, Paulie Malignaggi, and we have via Zoom the champ, Chris Algieri, and we also have Bob Santos, Mario Barrios trainer. Gentlemen, this Saturday, July 19, at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada, Manny Pacquiao is going to be coming back from retirement to face Mario Barrios for the WBC welterweight title. Bob, welcome to Boxing Scene Today. How's training camp with Mario?
Training camp been great. Obviously, you're motivated. You're fighting an icon, so you leave no stone unturned to be prepared for this fight. And like I said, again, he's super motivated. And when a guy's super motivated, it's a lot easier to work with him in the gym. I'm sure as Algieri knows, Paulie knows, and you know yourself, just as common sense. With that kind of motivation, it's a different level.
Bob, how do you go? How do you not slip into the pitfall of sort of not getting sort of enamored with the hype and the sort of promotion of the fight and sort of overlook Manny? Manny's a little bit older. He hasn't looked good recently, but it's still, it's still, like you said, it's still an icon. You want to prepare for the best Pacquiao, but in your mind, how do you how does Mario stay focused on okay, I got to prepare for the Pacquiao of old. Just to, I don't know, I can't rely on an old Pacquiao to show up. Obviously, no one should think like that. But how do you let that not fluster you in camp, in the day-to-day operations? Obviously, you said he's motivated, but mentally, how is he?
Well, like I told him, I was one that picked Keith Thurman to beat Manny Pacquiao, and I was there ringside that night. And lo and behold, Thurman's on the deck in the first round. The 12th round finishes, and Manny Pacquiao's raising his hand, and he was at 40-41 at that time. So I told him that's the Pacquiao that we have to prepare for. That's what you have to envision in your mind. And he's been super motivated for this camp. And like I said, he knows this is the opportunity of a lifetime. You beat a guy like Manny Pacquiao, you get that on your resume, regardless of what age he is. It takes you to another level, just with a general fan. And so I think it's super, super important that he stay focused, which he did.
Yeah, Coach, you made me think of a really, really interesting point. You mentioned the Keith Thurman fight, and that's the Pacquiao that you're training for. Because, listen, I fought Pacquiao 11 years ago, which is crazy to even think about. I've been retired for 3 years already, and now we're about to get ready for another Manny Pacquiao fight week. But even the version that I fought was different than the guy that I prepared for. I prepared for the two-fisted offensive machine that would fly in with crazy combinations and lightning fast hands and heavy fists. But when I fought him, it was post Marquez 4 when he got KO'd. He boxed a lot more. He showed his IQ. He showed his rhythm breaks throughout the fight. And then the version that fought Keith was very different than the version that fought me. Because in that fight, he wasn't moving the same way. He didn't have that in and out. He couldn't really circle the ring. He had to stand in front of Keith and take some shots and be in the inside. He showed incredible durability. But the punch is always the last thing to go. So how do you guys look at this? Like, are you just, all right, we're training for the guy that fought Keith? Or could this guy be a different guy once again? His ability to adapt and change as he's aged, I mean, it's pretty incredible.
I think where he's going to be in for a big shock and a rude awakening is, and a lot of people underestimate Mario Barrios' punching power. If you look at Batirov, the tough Russian, had that close fight with Sim, set the all-time punch record, which arguably he could have won the fight. The fight with Puello that I had when Puello won the world title against him, arguably he could have won that fight. So when you look at that, Batirov never been down with those guys. Mario Barrios put him 2 times on the deck. If you look at Abel Ramos, we had a draw with him, but if you look at that fight, if they would have ruled the knockdown in the first round, we would have had a unanimous decision. The guy goes to start giving them a count, then all of a sudden he stops the count or let us start punching on him. He maybe doesn't go the distance. So that should have been the unanimous decision. Abel Ramos, who had a split decision with Ugas, who stopped Omar Figueroa, who's a world champion, who's a very, very tough guy. And like I said, you look at all these guys. Keith Thurman, when we jumped up to fight him, yes, he beat us clearly, but he got hurt in that fight and spit out his mouthpiece. He told me after the fight, if Barrios would have just used his jab more and put a little bit more combinations together, would have been a much, much different fight. All I can attest to is this. As his head coach, we've never lost a fight together. I took him to #1 in the world from 122-pounder to #1 in the world at 130. For whatever reason, they moved Virgil in. And he was the head coach for a time. He had the loss to, I was still with him, but I was no longer the head coach. He had the loss to Gervonta Davis, who's never lost to anybody. there's no excuses. Fights are fights, but we did have a lot of trouble making that weight at 140. Then we jump up to 147, and our first fight at 147 is against arguably one of the best, welterweights there is out there, and he hurt him. So, like I said, Mario Barrios is a bigger puncher than people think, and I think Pacquiao is going to be in for a big surprise when he gets hit. Yeah, you can punch, but how are you going to react when we punch you?
Hey, Coach, what's the biggest adjustment you guys made on Mario's camp to fight a legend like Manny Pacquiao?
I think the main key is, it's no secret, we got to use the jab, and we got to use our length. I'm sure Freddie, I was in and around Freddie. I did many camps with Manny, with Robert Guerrero. So I'm sure Freddie knows that. So it's no secret, like the Bill Parcells School of Football, they can know what's coming, but we're going to shove the football down their ass. So that's what we're going to do. He knows it's coming. We're going to work behind that stick, use our length, and dig hard and heavy. And we'll see if he still wants to be there as the rounds continue to move forward.
Bob, being a New Yorker, I love the Parcells analogy, bro. That was my favorite Giants coach in my lifetime. Having said that, I think you make a very good point about Barrios' power not being discussed enough. I think that's probably the reason he can be around this level, if anything, because I'm sure you've probably heard my comments. I don't rate Mario very well. You know what I mean? I think his defense is very poor, and he makes some bad decisions in there. But I do agree with you that he's got some very good power. Probably it's not discussed enough, and probably and the examples you made. Obviously, you've done your homework, and you can reach back and get the bag of facts out there. They're great points you made. And I'll reiterate, it's probably the reason he's here. How do you not fall in love with the power so much and go back to, being smart boxing wise? Because the power is going to be there regardless, right? But you got to be smart and not take the shots as well. You got to be smart and not allow yourself to be broken down with freebies, with defensive lapses. Basically, freebies giving the opponent free big shots and having those defensive lapses, as we've seen Mario sort of go through in his career. How do you sort of put that together? Because there are positives to his style, but how do you take the positive while negating the negative?
Well, what he's got to do is he's got to realize when there's a time to box and there's a time to fight, and that comes with experience. In the first Gervonta Davis fight, we boxed Gervonta Davis very well, to the point where it's Floyd Mayweather, his own promoter, goes to him in the 11th round and says, look, you're losing this fight. You need a knockout. And, had Floyd probably not been able to go in the corner and give him that advice, and he doesn't go for the knockout and catch us, we probably would have won a decision with him. And had we not got a decision on the judges' scorecards for whatever reason, I'm pretty sure everybody ringside had us up in the fight, including his own promoter. But what Barrios has got to realize, and that comes with experience, there's a time to box and there's a time to fight. And sometimes he gets caught where, he should be, like, for instance, in the Abel Ramos fight, we dropped him in the first round. We dropped him in the third round. We probably should have stepped on his throat and finished him in the fourth and fifth and stepped up at that. But then he started to box a little bit. So you don't want to get those two things mixed up, like you said. So there's a time to box, there's a time to fight and use your power. You can't get caught with just one or the other.
So it's a matter of having the experience, and you saying he has it. You think he has it in the bag of tricks, and to be able to balance that out Saturday night.
Well, interesting statement. I'll never forget it. When Robert Guerrero first fought Floyd Mayweather, Floyd told Robert, we were in the green room. He says, "Are you ready for this?" And Robert's thinking in his head, "Man, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to go to war. You better bring it." And that's not what Floyd was talking about. I seen Floyd maybe 4 months after the fight. I'm a good friend with Floyd. And he says, Bob, now you understand what I was talking about. And I said, yeah, what he was talking about is, how do you handle the family? How do you handle the tickets? How do you handle the pressure of the event? How do you handle, for the first time in your life, doing all these interviews, being the center of attention?
The moment.
And obviously we fell short with that against the great fighter. And Barrios fell short with that with Gervonta Davis. That was his first time on the big stage. He came up short. About 4 minutes. I think we got stopped in the 11th round. So had we been able to go the distance, maybe we would have came up with the victory. It didn't happen. And then our next fight, again, we're in another pay-per-view, again, like I said, with
Thurman.
And, that's no easy task, because Thurman has good feet. Thurman's underrated with his athleticism. And so obviously that's going to give anybody a little bit of problem when you give movement. As you well know, Paulie, you were a good mover. And when you give guys movement and make them reset, it can be troublesome. But I think those two fights there led us to the win with Ugas, and it's going to lead us to the win with Manny Pacquiao.
Bob, I'm loving this interview, by the way, because you keep saying things and it makes me change. I got a question in my mind, something I want to ask, and then you start speaking, and then I'm like, all right, I got to go a different direction. So you talk about the moment, that story about Floyd Mayweather and Guerrero is so awesome, because fighting Manny Pacquiao is not just a fight; it's an experience. Everything leading around it, leading up to it. Wait, this fight week is just starting. This is going to be an intense week. The media obligations, everything, but also everything leading up to it. It's a different thing. He's a different level of athlete. So you mentioned you being such a good coach. You've been there with guys and different guys. You've also mentioned Mario being there and being in these situations before. All right, let me start with this. When it first came up, how was Mario? And then my second question to that would be, my part B would be, as this has been rolling out, how has Mario been?
When it first came up, obviously he was in disbelief, right? Pacquiao hasn't fought in 4 years. I'm gonna have an opportunity to fight an icon. Okay, Bob, stop the bullshit. Who are we looking at fighting? Have you talked to Al? Have you talked to Louis DeCubas Jr.? What are we looking at? What's next for us? No, really, we're fighting Manny Pacquiao. And then when everything came together, he gets the call from Louis DeCubas, obviously, and Al Heyman gives the green light on it. Then it was just like, wow, okay, shit. And I've never seen him this motivated for a fight. He is super, super motivated for this fight. We're preparing for the Manny Pacquiao of old, the Manny Pacquiao that fought Keith Thurman. And that's what I told him. I go, look, I picked against Pacquiao with Thurman. I thought Thurman was going to mop the floor up with him. I go, he's too old. And boom, before you know it, he's on the ground. Boom, before you know it, they're raising his hand. Jesus, Criminy, what did I just witness? And then I'll give you the caveat. I used to work with Ugas, so I know Ugas pretty well too. That being said, people forget when he was getting ready for Ugas, right? He was getting ready for a lefty. He was spent. Then all of a sudden, I don't care what anybody says. You're preparing for 2 months for a certain style, and they pull the rug on you. And it's no easy task to fight Ugas, a 400-fight Olympian Cuban who's a medal winner in the Olympics, who's long, who has a good right hand.
Has a win over Pacquiao.
By the way,
has a win over
You're going to
Pacquiao.
fight him the last week.
And has a win over Pacquiao too.
Correct. Yeah.
No, he's talking about the Pacquiao fight. About
the
That's
Pacquiao.
exactly what I'm talking about. So it's like, that was no easy task for Pacquiao. So
people forget that, Bob. It's crazy. People are like, oh, yeah, he lost to Ugas. He looked really listless in that fight. Yeah, he didn't prepare for Ugas. He prepared for Errol Spence. He was a completely different guy. Yeah.
A long right-hander.
Totally different fighter.
Completely different rhythm. And, if I was them, I would have never went through with that fight, but they did. It is what it is. He retired after that. He's back now. And like I say, we're going to see how the fight plays out this Saturday night. But I think Mario Barrios, he's underestimated by a lot of people. And I think they're going to be in for a big shock. And I'll tell you this, on any given night, I don't care if it's Norman. I know a lot of guys, Norman would beat Barrios. Let me tell you something. Maybe they're right. But don't underestimate, that boy can hit you one time on the button. Virtually every opponent he's ever fought has hit the deck. And you don't become a two-time world champion in 2 different weight classes for nothing. And to Paulie's point, it's underestimated with his punching power. Now what he's got to do is he's got to decipher the two. Know when to box, know when to fight. And if he can do that, he can beat anybody on any given night.
That's exactly what I want to ask you, Bob. Do you think that Barrios' size and youth will be the deciding factors on this fight?
I think his size and his punching power. I know Margarito very well. I had Jose Zelaya back in the day. I'm sure you remember Paulie. He was an alternate.
He was a very good Olympian in my generation.
Williams. Yep. So I worked with him for a long time, and we used to spar Margarito all the time. Barrios, believe it or not, people don't realize this. He's bigger than Margarito. He'll be heavier than Margarito on fight night, and there is no rehydration clause for this fight. Like we had, there's a lot of problems with the Gervonta Davis fight. Keith Thurman, I'm going to give you all the credit in the world. You were just better than us. The Gervonta Davis fight, it was a war to make the weight, and it was a war for everything that we went through. Because if you look at it, when we jumped up from 130, because he had a growth spurt, grew to 6'1", 6 foot 6'1".
Yeah, he turned pro young, so he's...
Yeah, but we couldn't make, so we're at 22, 26, couldn't make 30 anymore. And when we went to 40, we never went to 40. Every fight was at 44. Then we fought Batirov, was our first fight at 40, really making 40. And we struggled to make weight in that fight, dropped him twice, got the decision. Then we were done with the weight class. They made us do one more fight because under the Gervonta Davis card there in San Antonio and with Cowboy. And then from there, we were like, we're done. We're moving to welterweight. So we're preparing, getting our body ready for welterweight. And they says, no, you got the Gervonta Davis fight. and it was just too much money, too
Yeah,
great
can't
of an
turn that down.
opportunity to turn down.
Yeah.
So then we had to come back down to 140, and that was our problem. Then our first fight at 47, like I said, Keith Thurman, no easy task. But then we fought Ugas, beat him. Fabian Madonna, who just came out right now, and mentioned too, Polanco, who's a big-time star with Top Rank, the Dominican.
Yeah, he's a stud.
What did he just say? Fabian Madonna said Barrios hits way harder than Polanco. He's a bigger puncher than him. So now we just got to know when we got to fight and when we got to box.
Bob, you know what you want Mario to be feeling this week. Obviously, you talk about the Mayweather moment. Now this is the same kind of thing Chris Champ talked about, the Pacquiao experience and whatnot. Obviously, Mario's not here, so I can't ask him, but I can ask you because you'll be there as well on Saturday night. The seconds are out of the ring. The fighters are in their corner. The referee's checking with the bell and checking with the timekeeper to ring the round one bell. What's going through your mind on Saturday night?
We prepared. We left no stone unturned. Let's just put everything together. And I think when you do that, you feel super confident going in. Obviously, as a coach, you don't turn up victorious every time. But I think my track record as a coach has shown that I leave no stone unturned to prepare my fighters to be at their absolute best. And I know we did all the work. And as long as you do that, you're comfortable. Whatever the results are going to be, but I feel very, very confident we're going to be victorious.
Because I'll add this, it's an interesting feeling when you're fighting somebody from a prior generation. Obviously, Pacquiao was a star prior to Barrios entering the fray at world-class level. It's always interesting when everybody leaves the ring and it's you and that person you grew up watching on TV is across the ring. It's interesting from that perspective, but you got to also, reel it in and keep that hyper focus.
Champ, that's funny you say that because I literally was asked that, this week. I'm out here in Vegas for Fight Week with Pacquiao, and obviously a former opponent I'm now a media member. I was asked that, and I said, nah, you know what? I never really had that moment until he punched me in the face. Then I was like, shit. Manny Pacquiao was across the ring for me because we had that standoff. I was like, I'm whipping you, man. This is what we're doing. And then he cracked me in that first round with a straight left hand, and I was like, okay, Manny Pacquiao's in front of me now. I gotta. This is real.
It's showtime.
Hey, Coach, last question. What does a win over Manny Pacquiao means to Mario's career and yours as a trainer?
Well, me personally, it would be huge to get a win over an icon. Obviously, we're in a tough situation because if we win, everybody's going to say, well, he was too old, right? So, and I get that. So we're in a tough situation. But that being said, I don't care. Anytime you can step in the ring with Manny Pacquiao and get a win to beat a legend, an icon, just a world-class figure, maybe arguably the greatest fighter ever, to do what he did across those weight classes. Matter of fact, even if you don't win, just to say you win against that guy, even with Robert Guerrero fighting Floyd Mayweather, to me, yeah, we came up short. But you know what? Just to say you did that is an accomplishment itself. Now, you add a win to that, obviously that's a feather in your cap to go down in history. It would be huge for him, and it would be huge for me. And I've done an awful lot in the sport. I've been against Canelo. I've been against Mayweather. I've been against Gervonta. So this would be absolutely, I think, the zenith for me. And obviously, I know it would be for him.
The zenith for you, that's a great word. Bob, thank you very much, man. Best of luck this Saturday, okay?
Thank you, guys. God bless you.
Thank you to Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri. I'm Ricardo Celis. Thank you for watching Boxing Scene Today.